All right, the final case I want to talk to you about, John, and this is actually from California. So let's imagine that a student of yours asked you in this class, would you know the answer? This officer asks, actually, another officer. Okay, so an officer asks, hey, look, can we search a suspect's phone? And also, can we use his fingerprint to unlock the phone? All right, so the question, the scenario is this. Deputies got into a pursuit with a stolen vehicle. The pursuit was canceled, but the deputies found the vehicle crashed and abandoned less than a minute later. Think doors open, think keys in the ignition. Well, first of all, it's stolen, right? So there's another hint about what the status of this constitutionally. And they found a phone left on the driver's seat. And a parolee was linked as the driver shortly after, and it was detained. So, okay, so we have the phone, we have a parolee, okay? Then we bring them together. Together they will meet. Can we search that phone? Can we put his fingerprint on that phone, for example, and search that phone? Yes or no?
Okay. So this is an interesting question. It's a great question. It implicates a whole lot of different things, right? Mm-hmm. So if we're going to be searching the phone, when I am on parole, I've signed away all my rights.
Yep.
That's a California. That's a California thing, right? So
that's California, baby.
Where I was working, it was like, you had to have a probation officer with you if you rely on that. But California,
same with Nevada. Same with Nevada. Yep.
Yeah,
but not California.
Is like you've signed away all your rights when you are out, right? Now, I have heard some interesting things as far as the phones go, even in California, because we did talk about this. And again, prosecutor preference, maybe. But when we're talking about cell phones, well, an officer suggested today that they are required to get warrants, right? Even in your probation or parole situation. All right. And so if we are in the situation in California where this guy's a parolee, I can search with no basis. Agreed?
That's correct. In California.
So yeah. So, now the question, so I can search the phone, right? Yes. Okay.
Correct.
Yes. In California.
Correct.
So then the question becomes, can I compel him to use his fingerprint to unlock the phone? Right. And that's the question, right? Is that compulsion, or is that a violation of his Fifth Amendment rights?
Well, did you see, we just talked about this in the class that this did. I know you came on late, but we just talked about identifying suspects. What is the answer? What did I teach you guys during that webinar? Can we basically compel this person to put his fingerprint on that phone? Yes or no, right? And right, it's actually, Brad is saying it's not Fifth Amendment, it's due process, because the fingerprint is not testimonial. So it's not a Fifth Amendment issue. And even if he wanted a lawyer, it's not going to work. And does it violate his due process? No, because you just answered it, John. He's on parole. So he already has an expectation that the cops are going to search his phone if it's for a legitimate purpose. So here's the case. You ready for it? I found it. People versus Del Rio, California Appellate Court, Fifth. It's Cal App 5th, 2020. It says, finally, we observed the cell phone search was not arbitrary, capricious, or harassing. A search is arbitrary and capricious when the motivation for the search is unrelated to rehabilitative, reformative, or legitimate law enforcement purposes, or when the search is motivated by personal animosity towards the parolee. Because the officers here had specific reasons to suspect that the defendant was involved in a residential burglary, and the search was related to legitimate parole monitoring and law enforcement purposes, and there was no evidence suggesting the officers had personal animosity towards the defendant. The search took place at a reasonable hour, was not unreasonable prolonged, and this was a search of his phone. They upheld it. I don't know,
Great.
so I just try to grab a quote, but phones can be searched in California, which is again another reason why I love California.
And so let me ask you, Anthony, is there any difference between the fingerprint or me holding the phone up in front of his face and using the facial recognition to unlock it?
Not in my view. Not for parole, not for parole,
right?
Not testimonial. Now, I'm not saying, yeah, I mean, look, I mean, obviously we may have different arguments if you have a free citizen, right, that doesn't have that the Fourth Amendment waiver, but that might be a little different, right? There might be some due process issues. There might be you might need a warrant, right? I'm not saying we just, but also this phone might be abandoned as well. But as far as he goes, we can search it in California. Okay. Yeah. And that's how, I mean, California it's mic drop stuff there. I mean, it's crazy. It's a state that has a lot of issues, right, with their crime control. But when it comes to parole probationers, man, I mean, it's game on for these cops. And it does not have to be a probation officer or parole officer. Right? Pretty crazy. Let me, can I tell you one of my, I mean, I'll just tell you, like, this one case, I was like kind of shocked because we would never be allowed to do this in Nevada. You couldn't do it in Arizona. Sean can't do this in Iowa. But there was a case where the cop arrested this guy for, I forget, it was something minor. Okay. But the guy was on, I think actually probation, maybe parole. But anyway, he was on supervised release. And when they searched him, instant to arrest, they found that he had a motel key. Okay. And they knew what, motel, right? So they went over to the motel, and while he's in jail, and they said, "Hey, is it John Doe, staying here?" Like, yeah, he's in room 101. And they went over to the room and searched it. The guy's in jail with no reason. It wasn't like they weren't looking for evidence of the crime he was suspected of, I don't think. And, it was just, I just want to search it to make sure that he's on the up and up. And they found evidence of a fraud lab. Could you ever do that shit in Arizona? I mean, it's like
California's cool with this, right? Why? Because it just makes sense. Let me out, take away all my rights. I don't care. Just let me out.
Well, I think that's the way it should be. And the Supreme Court case, I believe, is Sampson on this, that says that you don't need any reasonable suspicion to search a parolee. Now, California does apply to probationers, but I think the logic should be the same, because what they're saying is, hey, if you remained locked up, right, we could go into your cell, we could search your mail, not legal mail, but we could search your mail, we could search your person. So if you want to take those same conditions and be on the street, then that's your choice, right? I mean, it makes a lot of sense. We can search you in jail, but you get out a little early, you still serving a sentence in the community. We can't search you. It doesn't make any sense. So I like it. I agree with it. And I wish that all states did it. What about if you think he fled from the car and you want to see if his face or finger unlocks the phone to show he was there? Not a search of the phone, normal people rules, not Cali weird stuff. I'm actually probably good with it under the act that, first of all, it is abandonment, right? He probably abandoned the phone to begin with. So just and we do have case law where fingerprints are not really, taking fingerprints when a person is lawfully detained, right? Detained. You can actually, there's case law where you can take fingerprints from a person with reasonable suspicion. So here we have probable cause. So I'm good with it. John, are you good with it? Why not? Right?
I'm good with it. Yeah. Sure. We're trying.
Yeah, I'm good with
tie him to the scene of the crime.
Yeah. I mean, we could put his finger on a ink pad and take we can roll a print in the field. So why couldn't we roll the print on a phone just to see if it matches? Now, if the phone is not abandoned, we can't search it. We know that. Right? But, I don't see why we couldn't do that. You hesitate, or no, you're good with it?
No, I'm good with it. And if you guys, if you want anything else, New Jersey versus Edwards, interesting case as far as cell phones and compulsion, foregone conclusion, things of that nature. Yeah. So New Jersey versus Edwards, they appealed to the United States Supreme Court, or Edwards did, and they denied certiorari. So